Chapter 1. The snapshot that broke. Joshua Baker hated clubs. Not in a dramatic, soul-crushing way. He simply didn't belong in them. The lights were too erratic, the music loud enough to make conversation an act of strategy rather than spontaneity. And the entire environment felt like a performance he had no interest in rehearsing. Still, he was there. Josh leaned slightly toward Amanda as she laughed at something one of her friends said, though he doubted she heard the joke any more clearly than he did. Her hand brushed his arm briefly. A fleeting touch. More for display than connection. He noticed things like that. It was second nature. 5 months wasn't a long time, but it was long enough to establish patterns. And Amanda had patterns. He took a slow sip of his drink, eyes casually scanning the room before returning to her. Not because he suspected anything in that moment, but because he had learned that observation often told the truth words tried to bury. About an hour into the night, the shift started. Amanda's posture changed first. Subtle. Her shoulders angled slightly outward instead of toward him. Her laugh grew a little louder. Her eye contact with him came sharper, more deliberate, as though she were checking something. Then came the man. Josh didn't know him. Didn't need to. The guy drifted into the conversation orbit easily enough, tall, confident in a practiced way, his attention settling on Amanda with textbook interest. And Amanda welcomed it. Not fully, not overtly, just enough. Josh watched, not with anger, but with clarity. It was the same behavior she'd hinted at before. Testing, probing, creating situations to draw out reactions. He took another sip, letting the realization settle. She wants a response. Amanda glanced at him, eyes lingering a fraction too long, searching. Josh gave her nothing. He turned back to one of her friends, Marissa he thought, and asked an easy question about her recent trip. She started talking, grateful for someone actually listening. Josh nodded occasionally, engaged, but internally steady. Across the circle, Amanda laughed again. The other guy leaned closer. Her body language invited it. Another glance toward Josh. Nothing. He finished his drink. "Excuse me a second," he said calmly, setting the empty glass on a nearby surface. Amanda watched him go. He didn't need to look back to know that. The bar was crowded, a wall of movement and raised voices. But Josh wasn't searching for just space. He was looking for opportunity. And then he saw them. 2 women at the far end of the bar, seated just outside the densest part of the chaos. They were angled toward each other, deep in conversation, insulated from the noise as much as the place allowed. Not receptive, not scanning the room, not playing the same game everyone else seemed to be playing. Perfect. Josh approached slowly, stopping at a respectful distance. The woman facing him first, dark hair, sharp eyes, lifted one eyebrow in a way that very clearly said, "You are not part of this evening." Josh raised both hands slightly, an easy, disarming gesture. "I hope your night's going well," he said, voice steady and clear enough to cut through the surrounding noise. "I promise I'm not hitting on you." That earned him a look. The second woman, lighter hair, relaxed posture, tilted her head, curious but not convinced. Josh exhaled lightly. "Actually, I hate games," he continued, "but I seem to be in one." The first woman's expression shifted, amusement flickering. "Go on," she said. Josh nodded once. "My girlfriend, well, as of about 30 seconds ago, probably my ex, is trying to make me jealous. Flirting with someone right now, but not enough to be obvious. Just enough to get a reaction." The lighter-haired woman let out a short laugh. "That's specific." "It's familiar," Josh said simply. "And I don't play games with children." That got both of them. Not a polite chuckle, an actual laugh. The first woman leaned forward slightly now, interest replacing skepticism. "Okay," she said. "You've got our attention. What's the plan?" Josh allowed himself a small smile. "I was going to ask one of you to walk out of here with me. Nothing beyond that. I'll buy both of you dinner anywhere you want as thanks. Then we all go our separate ways." The second woman exchanged a glance with her friend, something silent passing between them. "You've never done this before," she said. Josh gave a small shrug. "Not really my style." "What is your style?" the first woman asked. "Honesty," he said. There was no hesitation in the answer, no attempt to make it sound better than it was. Just truth. The 2 women looked at each other again. Then the first one leaned in closer to her friend, whispering something. A quiet conversation, quick but animated. The second woman smirked, then nodded. They turned back to him. "So," the first woman said, resting her elbow casually on the bar, "you want to make her jealous, something like that." She tilted her head. "And you think one of us is enough?" Josh blinked once. "Well, how do you think she'll feel?" the second woman cut in. "When you walk out with one woman?" "Upset," Josh admitted. The first woman's smile sharpened. "Good. Now how do you think she'll feel when you walk out with both of us?" There was a beat. Josh stared at her. Then he burst out laughing. Not forced. Not polite. Genuine. "Her head might actually explode," he said. "Perfect," the second woman replied. Josh rubbed the back of his neck, still grinning. "That wasn't part of the original plan." "That's the problem," the first woman said lightly. Your plan was efficient, not memorable. Josh studied them both for a moment longer. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Let's make it memorable. The first woman stood, extending her hand. Lena. He took it. Josh. The second woman stood as well, offering her own handshake. Maris. Nice to meet you, Josh said. Lena glanced toward the dance floor. Lead the way, photographer. Josh paused slightly. How did you observe, she said simply. It shows. He smiled. Fair enough. Together, the three of them turned toward the chaos Josh had just walked away from. And for the first time that night, he was looking forward to what happened next. Chapter 2, Dinner with Consequences. The reaction was immediate. Josh hadn't even made it halfway back to the group before Amanda noticed. It wasn't subtle. 3 people walking in a straight line toward the exit, Lena on one side, Maris on the other, both close enough that it very clearly communicated something intentional. Josh didn't look at Amanda right away. He didn't rush. He wasn't performing for her. He was finishing something. Heading out. Marissa, Amanda's friend, called over the music, her tone confused but light. Josh stopped just long enough to answer, his voice calm. Yeah, early morning tomorrow. Amanda stepped forward, her expression tightening slightly as she looked between him and the 2 women. And who are they? Josh met her eyes then, steady and unbothered. People who don't play games, he said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The words landed cleanly. Amanda's mouth opened just slightly, like she had something ready. A comeback, an accusation, something sharp, but nothing came out fast enough to matter. The moment had already moved past her. Josh gave her a polite nod. Take care, Amanda. And just like that, he turned and walked out of the club, with Lena and Maris at his sides, the bass fading behind them as the door shut. Outside, the night air felt cooler than it should have. Josh exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. Well, he said, glancing at both of them. That escalated. Maris laughed first, folding her arms as she leaned casually against the brick wall. You call that escalation? That was clean, efficient emotional devastation. Lena tilted her head, watching Josh with a more measured curiosity. You didn't even flinch. Josh shrugged. No reason to. There's always a reason, Lena said. You just chose not to give it to her. He met her gaze briefly, then looked away, thoughtful. Reactions are currency. I don't spend mine where it doesn't pay. Maris pointed at him. I like that. I'm stealing it. Josh smirked faintly. Be my guest. A short pause settled over them. Not awkward, just transitional, like the moment after the opening act when everyone adjusts to what came next. Josh straightened slightly. All right, I said dinner, and I meant it. Maris pushed off the wall. Good, because now I'm invested. Lena crossed her arms lightly, studying him. Important question, she said. Are we talking cheap apology dinner or actual dinner? Josh put a hand over his chest in mock offense. You wound me. She didn't blink. I'm assessing risk. He smiled. Actual dinner. Your choice. Maris's eyes lit up. Oh, this just got better. They settled on a late-night bistro a few streets away. Quiet enough to talk, warm lighting, the kind of place where the music sat politely in the background instead of trying to overpower the room. By the time they were seated, the energy had shifted again. The adrenaline of the club was gone, replaced with something calmer, more grounded, real. Menus were opened, closed, and abandoned quickly enough once decisions were made. As the waiter left, Maris leaned back in her chair, looking between Josh and Lena with poorly concealed amusement. So, she said, tell us something honest. What made you stay 5 months with someone who plays games like that? Josh rested his forearms on the table, considering the question. Because it didn't start like that, he said. It rarely does. Lena nodded slightly, like she expected that answer. And when it started? I waited, he replied simply. For what? Maris asked. For it to stop. And when it didn't? Lena pressed. Josh met her eyes again. Then I stopped. There was no defensiveness, no bitterness, just a statement. Lena's expression shifted, something softer now, but sharpened by interest. You make that sound easy. It's not, Josh said. It's just simple. Maris huffed a laugh. That sounds like something a person says who refuses to explain themselves. Josh smiled faintly. Or someone who already has. Lena leaned forward slightly, resting her chin against her hand. All right, photographer. Let me ask you something better. Go ahead. Why the honesty approach back there? She said. Most guys would have tried something smoother. Or sleazier. Josh gave a small, thoughtful shrug. Because you would have seen through it. Maris snapped her fingers. He's not wrong. Lena didn't look away from him. And if we hadn't helped you, I still would have left, Josh said. Just without the story. That earned him a real smile from her. Brief, but genuine. Fair answer. The food arrived not long after, conversation flowing naturally between bites. Maris proved to be quick-witted, unfiltered, and dangerously observant, while Lena spoke less but said more when she did. Josh found himself adjusting, not performing, just calibrating the way he did when working with families. Reading tone, timing, energy. Except this wasn't work. That difference wasn't lost on him. At one point, Maris set her fork down and looked deliberately between the two of them. I have a question, she said. Lena narrowed her eyes slightly. That tone worries me. It should, Maris replied cheerfully. If I left right now, would either of you pretend to be sad? Josh blinked. That's abrupt. Answer the question. Lena sighed. You're not leaving. Maris stood up. Check please, she called lightly toward the waiter. Lena stared at her. You're unbelievable. Maris leaned down slightly, lowering her voice just enough for them. You're welcome, she said. Josh opened his mouth. You don't have to. I absolutely do, Maris cut in. Because this, she gestured between them, is too interesting to dilute with my presence. Lena pinched the bridge of her nose. You are not subtle. And yet, I'm effective. Maris straightened, flashing Josh a grin. You seem like a decent guy. Don't make me regret this. I won't, Josh said honestly. She gave a single nod, satisfied. Good. Dinner was excellent. Company was tolerable, she added toward Lena. Lena rolled her eyes. Get out. Maris laughed, tossed a quick wave, and disappeared toward the exit with perfect timing. Silence settled again, but this time it was different, quieter, more focused. Josh leaned back slightly. She always like that? She's usually worse, Lena replied. He smiled. Good to know. A small pause stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just unguarded. Lena picked up her glass, then set it down again without drinking. So, she said, her tone softer now, more direct. Now what? Josh considered the question, not just the words, but the intent behind them. No games, he said. Lena nodded slowly. Good start. We finish dinner, he continued. We talk. And if we like the conversation, we don't pretend it didn't happen. And if we don't? She asked. Josh shrugged lightly. Then I still bought you dinner, and we go our separate ways without pretending it meant more than it did. Lena studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, small, but unmistakably genuine. All right, Josh, she said. Let's see if it's worth continuing. He met her gaze, steady. For what it's worth, he said. I think it is. Lena leaned back slightly, crossing her arms again, but the edge in her posture was gone. We'll see, she said. But the way she said it, it sounded a lot less like doubt and a lot more like possibility. Chapter 3, The Slow Burn. Josh didn't text Lena the next morning. He thought about it. That was new. Normally, after a night like that, unexpected connection, good conversation, effortless rhythm, he would follow through out of courtesy, not necessity. A message to acknowledge what happened, to maintain the thread. But this was different. So instead, he went about his morning the way he always did. Routine first, feelings later. He arrived at the studio just after 8, coffee in one hand, camera bag slung over his shoulder. The space smelled faintly of fresh paper and polished wood, a steady, familiar backdrop that reminded him why he liked this part of his life so much. Predictable didn't mean boring. It meant stable. Morning, Josh. He looked up to see Daniel at the front desk, already buried in scheduling notes. Morning, Josh replied, setting his bag down by the equipment counter. Got a full lineup today. 3 family sessions, all repeats, Daniel added, tapping his clipboard. You're officially the favorite again. Josh smiled slightly. That means expectations are high. Or that you don't scare people away. That too. But as he checked his camera settings, made sure everything was squared away, something in the back of his mind kept circling. Conversation. A look across a table. The way Lena didn't fill silence just to avoid it. He shook his head lightly, refocusing. Work first. His first session was a family of 5, 2 parents, 3 kids under 10, and exactly the kind of chaotic energy most photographers tried to control. Josh didn't. All right, he said, crouching slightly to get on their level. What do you guys actually want this to look like? The youngest kid blinked at him. What do you mean? I mean, Josh said, smiling. If this picture ends up in your house somewhere, what do you want to feel when you see it? The parents exchanged a quick glance, surprised. Well, the mother said slowly, I guess happy. Together. Josh nodded. Good. Let's start there. No stiff poses. Just stand close, talk to each other like you normally would. The father laughed. That might be louder than you expect. Josh grinned. Perfect. Loud is real. As the session unfolded, laughter replaced awkwardness. Kids bumped into each other. Parents adjusted naturally. Small unscripted moments emerged. Josh didn't interrupt them. He adjusted. Light, angle, position. Hold that. No, don't look at me. Keep talking. There it is. Click. He stepped back after a few more shots, glancing at the monitor display. Come take a look. The family gathered around, and there it was, not perfect symmetry, not rigid posture, but something undeniably right. That's us, the mother said quietly. Josh nodded. Exactly. By the time the second session ended, the morning had slipped into early afternoon. Josh grabbed his phone from his bag, finally allowing himself to pause. He opened his messages. Her name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. He hadn't texted. He stared at the blank space for a moment. Then he typed, "Hey, survived the aftermath?" He looked at it for a second. Simple. Not forced. He sent it. Then he put his phone back down and picked up his camera again. No hovering. No waiting. He trusted the moment to exist without chasing it. It was almost an hour later, midway through organizing equipment, when his phone buzzed. Josh glanced at it casual, then paused. Lena. Define aftermath. I feel like that word carries consequences. He let out a quiet breath that almost turned into a laugh. He typed back, "Josh, fair. I meant your friend abandoning you mid-dinner." The reply came quicker this time. Lena. She calls that strategic social engineering. Josh leaned against the counter, shaking his head. Josh. Sounds expensive. I paid for that strategy. There was a pause. Then, Lena. Worth it? Josh didn't answer immediately. He thought about the question. Not the easy version. The real one. Then he typed, "Josh, yeah." 3 dots appeared almost instantly, then disappeared, then came back again. Finally, Lena. Good. Josh stared at the screen a moment longer than necessary. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he didn't feel the need to rush. They didn't text constantly. That was the first difference he noticed. There wasn't a constant stream trying to fill every gap. No over-explaining. No checking in for reassurance disguised as conversation. Instead, it came in moments. Midday observations. Short exchanges. Questions that actually meant something. That evening, it picked up again. Lena. Photographer. Serious question. Josh. That sounds dangerous. Lena. Can you take a picture of someone who doesn't like being in pictures? Josh sat back on his couch, considering. Josh, yes. Pause. Lena. How? He didn't type right away. Instead, he called. The line rang once, twice. Then, hello. Her voice carried a different texture over the phone. Softer, less guarded, but still deliberate. Hey, Josh said. A slight pause. That was unexpected. You asked a real question, he replied. Text didn't feel like enough. He could almost hear the smile in her silence. All right, she said. Go on. Josh leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You don't take a picture of someone who doesn't like pictures, he said. That sounds like a contradiction. It's not, he replied. You just don't make the picture the focus. Then what is? He exhaled lightly. Comfort. Context. People don't hate pictures. They hate how they feel in them. There was a brief pause. Keep going, Lena said quietly. You give them something real to focus on, he continued. A conversation. A moment. Something that matters more than the camera. Then you step in, adjust just enough, and catch it before they realize? Sometimes, Josh said. Sometimes they realize, and they don't care. He heard her shift slightly on the other end. That's different. It works. Another pause. Then, you're not just talking about photography, are you? Josh smiled faintly. No, he admitted. Lena let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. You do that a lot? Do what? Answer questions in a way that makes people think you're answering a different one. Josh leaned back now. Only when it's accurate. She didn't respond right away. When she did, her tone had changed again. Less guarded, more thoughtful. I don't like being in pictures, she said. Josh nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I figured. Is it that obvious? Not to everyone. A short silence. Then, if I asked you to try, she said slowly, would you? Josh didn't hesitate. Yes. Another pause. But not today, he added. Why not? She asked. Because you don't trust me yet, he said simply. Lena exhaled softly. That's fair. Josh shifted slightly, relaxed. When you do, he continued, we'll try. And if I never do? Josh smiled. Then we'll probably have better conversations instead. That earned him a quiet laugh. You're very confident for someone who claims not to like games. I don't like games, he said. I just like clarity. Lena was quiet for a moment longer. Then coffee, she said. Josh blinked. That wasn't phrased like a question. It wasn't. When? A small pause. Tomorrow afternoon. Josh nodded once. All right. Public place, she added. Of course. Low pressure. Always. Another pause. Then, fine, she said. I'll see you tomorrow, Josh. Looking forward to it. The call ended shortly after. Josh sat there for a moment, phone still in hand. No tension. No guessing. Just steady progression. Not fast. Not forced. But moving forward all the same. And for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel like he needed to adjust anything. Chapter 4 Sisters and Signals. Josh chose the cafe carefully. Not because he thought Lena would judge it, but because his sisters would. He stood just outside the entrance for a moment, phone in hand, rereading the message he had sent earlier. You free later? My sisters are in town. Thought it might be better not to surprise you with them someday. There had been a pause before she replied. That sentence alone tells me I should say no. He'd smiled at that. Fair. They're intense. But honest. Another pause. Then, all right. I'll meet them. Now, standing outside the cafe, Josh rolled his shoulders once, exhaling slowly. This wasn't a test. But it wasn't nothing, either. The door opened behind him. You look like you're about to walk into a job interview. Josh turned. Lena stood there, hands tucked into the pockets of her coat, her expression calm but observant. I've had easier conversations, he admitted. She stepped up beside him, glancing at the cafe, then back at him. On a scale of 1 to interrogation, where do they fall? He considered it. Depends how much they like you. And if they don't? He gave her a sideways look. Then it's not subtle. Lena nodded once. Good. I prefer clarity. Josh smiled faintly. You'll get it. They walked in together. The sisters were already there. Of course they were. Elena Baker sat upright at the table, posture perfectly composed, her sharp eyes locking onto Josh the moment he entered. Beside her, Rachel Baker leaned back slightly, arms crossed, looking considerably more relaxed, but her gaze was just as evaluative. Two different approaches. Same intent. Rachel spotted Lena first. Well, she said under her breath, nudging Elena lightly. He didn't overpromise. Josh nearly groaned. You're starting already? Always, Rachel replied. They approached the table. Elena, Rachel. This is Lena. Both sisters stood. Elena extended her hand first. Nice to meet you. Her tone was polite, professional. Her eyes said something else entirely. Lena took her hand, steady. Likewise. Rachel stepped in next, her handshake quicker, her smile easier, but not less curious. Hi. We've heard. Nothing, actually. Josh blinked. That's not true. Rachel shrugged. You're private. Lena glanced at Josh briefly, then back at his sisters. That's probably a good sign. Elena gestured toward the chair. Please sit. They all settled in. The waiter came by briefly, orders were placed, and then, there it was. The quiet moment before the questions started. Rachel broke it first. So, Lena? She began casually, resting her elbow on the table. What exactly made you agree to meet us? Josh sighed. Direct. Lena didn't hesitate. Curiosity. Elena's eyebrow lifted slightly. About him. Partly, Lena said. Mostly about you. That caught them. Rachel's grin spread. Oh, I like her already. Elena didn't smile, but something in her posture shifted. Just slightly. And what have you learned so far? Elena asked. That you're protective, Lena replied. And that he knew this wouldn't be a casual meeting. Josh leaned back, watching. Lena wasn't defensive. She wasn't trying to impress them. She was meeting them. Rachel glanced at Josh. She's observant. I noticed, he said. Elena folded her hands on the table. And what are your intentions with my brother? Josh choked on his water. You can't just say it like that. Elena didn't look at him. I just did. Lena shifted slightly in her chair, not retreating, just adjusting. I don't have a script for that question, she said. Answer anyway, Elena replied. A small pause. Then Lena spoke, her voice calm. I'm not here to waste time, she said. Or his. Silence. Not awkward. Just quiet. Rachel tilted her head. That's it. For now, Lena said. Elena studied her for a long moment. You're not trying to convince us. No, Lena replied. That wouldn't work anyway. Rachel let out a short laugh. Accurate. Josh ran a hand over his face. This is going better than I expected. Elena glanced at him briefly. Your expectations were low. Historically supported, he muttered. The food arrived, creating a brief pause in the conversation. Small talk followed surface-level topics at first. Where Lena grew up, what she did for work, what she thought of the city. But underneath it, the evaluation continued. Josh could see it. Every answer Lena gave, every shift in tone, every moment of silence. His sisters tracked it all. And Lena didn't flinch. At one point, Rachel leaned forward again, resting her chin on her hand. All right, she said. I have a real question. Josh closed his eyes briefly. That's never a good sign. Rachel ignored him. What happened with the last one? She asked, looking directly at Lena this time. Josh's head snapped up. That's not. It's relevant, Rachel said calmly. Lena didn't look surprised. She glanced at Josh once, a brief check, then answered. She was testing him, Lena said. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You know that already? Josh shook his head slightly, incredulous. We did not discuss that in detail. Lena shrugged lightly. I saw enough. And? Elena asked. And he doesn't respond to that kind of behavior, Lena said. Rachel leaned back slowly, considering her. And what do you think of that? That it's healthy, Lena replied. And rare. Josh didn't say anything, but something in his chest settled. Elena remained still, eyes fixed on Lena. And you don't find it distant? Lena considered the question. Only if it's used to avoid things, she said. It doesn't seem like he does that. Rachel looked at Josh again. You're being evaluated in your own meeting. Feels fair, he muttered. Elena finally leaned back slightly. A small movement, but for her it meant something. Rachel noticed it too. So, she said, clasping her hands together. Final round. Josh groaned. There's a final round? There's always a final round. She looked at Lena again, her tone sharpening just a bit. If he's worth your time, Rachel said. Why haven't you said that directly? Josh blinked. That's wow. Lena didn't answer immediately. She sat back slightly, eyes narrowing just a fraction. Not defensively, but thoughtfully. Then she spoke. Because I don't say things I haven't decided yet. Quiet. Josh looked at her. Really looked. There was no game in that answer. No performance. Just truth. Rachel held her gaze for a moment longer. Then she smiled. Slow. Genuine. Okay, she said. That's a good answer. Elena didn't smile, but she nodded once, and that was louder. The tension shifted after that. Not gone, but different. Lighter. The conversation became less pointed, more natural. Stories were exchanged. Teasing emerged, mostly aimed at Josh as expected. You cried over a dog movie? Lena asked, trying not to laugh. I was younger, Josh protested. Rachel scoffed. It was last year. It was emotional, Elena added calmly. He also rewound the ending. Lena laughed then, fully without restraint. And Josh, despite himself, joined her, because it felt easy and real. After they left the cafe, the evening air cool around them, Lena walked beside him in comfortable silence for a few steps. Well, she said finally, your sisters are exactly what you described. Josh winced. That bad? No, she said. That precise. He glanced at her. That's a nicer word. It's accurate, she replied. Pause. Then she looked at him more directly. They love you, she said. It wasn't a question. Josh nodded once. Yeah. And they're making sure no one messes that up. Also true. Lena exhaled softly. I respect that. That sentence landed heavier than anything else she'd said all evening. Josh stopped walking. She turned slightly to face him. And, he asked. Lena held his gaze. I think, she said slowly, this might actually be worth deciding. Josh smiled faintly. Good, he said. Why? She asked. Because I already have. Lena studied him for a moment longer. Then she shook her head just slightly. Not in disagreement. Just acknowledgement. Slow, she said. Josh nodded. Slow. And for once, neither of them felt the need to rush what came next. Chapter 5, Flash and Focus. The park was louder than the studio, but in a way Josh preferred. Children's laughter carried across open space. Conversations blended naturally instead of colliding. And sunlight softened everything it touched. It made people less guarded, less aware of being observed, which was exactly why Josh had suggested it. Lena arrived 10 minutes late. Josh noticed, but not in the way most people would. He didn't check his watch, didn't make a point of it. He simply noted it the same way he noticed cloud cover shifting or the angle of light changing. She walked toward him with her usual unhurried stride, hands tucked in her jacket pockets, eyes scanning the area before settling on him. You started without me? She asked. Josh glanced up from adjusting his lens, faint amusement crossing his face. I always start before people notice. Lena stopped in front of him, tilting her head slightly. That sounds suspicious. It's practical, he said. You're on time for everything that matters. That's a generous interpretation, she replied. Josh shrugged lightly. I tend to give those. A brief silence settled. Not uncomfortable, just establishing itself. Lena gestured toward the small family gathered a short distance away. That them? Yeah, Josh said. Repeat clients. They asked for an outdoor session this time. She glanced between him and the family. And you decided to let me observe. Only if you're still curious, he said. Lena crossed her arms loosely. I am. Josh nodded once. All right, just don't interfere. She raised an eyebrow. That implies I might. You ask questions, he said simply. Fair. The family waved as Josh approached, their familiarity with him immediately obvious. Josh, the father called. Good to see you again. You too, Josh replied, shaking his hand lightly before crouching down to greet the kids. What's new? We got a dog, one of them announced proudly. Josh glanced up at the parents. That explains the energy. They laughed. Within minutes, the session began, but not in any structured way. Josh didn't line them up, didn't tell them where to stand. Instead, he asked simple questions. Where do you usually spend time together here? They pointed toward a patch of grass under a wide tree. Then let's go there. Lena watched from a short distance, hands still in her pockets, expression thoughtful. It didn't look like a photo shoot. It looked like people existing. The kids ran ahead, the parents followed, casual conversation unfolding. Josh drifted with them, not directing, just guiding. Stay close. Not because of me, just so you can hear each other. They adjusted naturally. Don't look at the camera, They didn't. Talk about something you actually enjoy. The mother rolled her eyes. That's going to turn into arguing about pizza toppings. Perfect, Josh said. Lena's brow furrowed slightly. He wasn't controlling the scene. He was shaping it. Wait, hold that, Josh called gently, raising the camera. Don't stop. Click, click, click. Small moments. A kid bumping into a parent. A laugh that broke too quickly to be staged. A glance exchanged without thinking. Josh moved with it, adjusting angles, catching light, stepping in only when necessary. Shift half a step to your right. Yeah, there, stay natural. It looked effortless. It wasn't. Lena could see the adjustments, the precision beneath the ease. After about 20 minutes, Josh lowered the camera. Come take a look, he said. The family gathered around the display. And just like that, everything clicked into place. Oh wow, the mother said quietly. That's actually us, the father added. Josh nodded, stepping back slightly to give them the space to see it for themselves. Lena moved closer, glancing at the images. They weren't perfect. Not by traditional standards, but they were right. They don't look posed, she said. They're not, Josh replied. She looked at him. But you controlled it. I didn't control them, he said. I controlled what mattered. Lena studied him for a moment. Which is comfort, he said. Everything else follows. After the session ended and the family left, grateful, relaxed, already talking about their next booking, Josh packed up his gear slowly. Lena lingered nearby. You're good, she said finally. Josh glanced at her. At photography? She shook her head slightly. At people. He smiled faintly. Same thing. I don't think it is, she said. It overlaps, he replied. Lena stepped closer, crossing her arms again. Not defensive, just thoughtful. You don't push, she said. Doesn't work, he answered. You don't perform. No reason to. You wait, she finished. Josh considered that. Sometimes. For what? She asked. He slung his camera bag over his shoulder. For the moment people stop trying, he said. That's when things get real. Lena exhaled slowly. That's not just photography. Josh met her eyes. No, he said. They started walking without deciding a direction. The park stretched out around them, quieter now, the afternoon easing into early evening. Lena kicked lightly at a loose pebble on the path, sending it skittering forward. You didn't ask me today, she said. About what? The picture, she replied. Josh slipped his hands into his pockets. You weren't ready. You didn't even check. I didn't need to. She stopped walking. Josh took another step before noticing, then turned back toward her. That annoys me, she said. He tilted his head slightly. Why? Because you're probably right. Josh smiled faintly. That's usually when it bothers people. Lena narrowed her eyes at him, but there was no real edge behind it. Try now, she said. Josh didn't reach for his camera. He just looked at her. Really looked. Then he shook his head. Not yet. Lena blinked. Seriously? Yeah. Why? Josh stepped closer, his tone steady. You're asking because you think you should, he said. Not because you want to. She crossed her arms tighter. That's not true. It is, he said calmly. Lena held his gaze, searching for something, certainty maybe, or a flaw. Then how do I know when I do want to? She asked. Josh shrugged slightly. You'll stop thinking about it. A quiet moment passed between them, the kind that lingered just long enough to matter. Lena exhaled slowly, her posture easing. You're frustrating, she said. I've heard that, Josh replied. But not in a bad way, she added. That's new. She smiled slightly, looking away for a second before returning her gaze to him. This, she said, gesturing lightly between them, is different. Josh nodded once. Yeah. And I don't hate it, she admitted. That's a strong review. Don't get used to it. He smiled. They started walking again. No rush, no pressure, just steady movement forward. After a few steps, Lena spoke again, quieter this time. When I'm ready, she said, you'll know. Josh didn't look at her. He didn't need to. Yeah, he said. I will. And somehow she believed him. Chapter 6, Shadows of the Past. Josh wasn't surprised when he saw her. He was, however, disappointed. It happened on a late Thursday afternoon, the kind of quiet hour when the studio slowed just enough for him to step outside with a coffee and breathe. The air was warm, the light softening toward evening, his favorite time of day. He had just leaned against the railing when the familiar voice cut through the calm. Josh. He didn't turn immediately, not out of avoidance, out of composure. Then he looked over his shoulder. Amanda stood a few steps away, dressed more casually than the last time he'd seen her, but just as deliberate. Her posture was carefully neutral, her expression softer than usual, crafted, not natural. Josh straightened slowly, taking her in without reacting. Amanda. There was a pause. She stepped closer, not too fast, not too slow. I wasn't sure if you'd actually stop, she said. I didn't, he replied evenly. You just caught me standing still. A flicker crossed her face. Quick, almost invisible. Not the response she wanted. You look good, she said, her eyes scanning him briefly before settling again. Josh nodded once. I'm doing all right. More silence. It stretched too long for small talk. Amanda shifted her weight slightly. I heard you've been busy. Work steady. That's good. Another pause. This one felt heavier. Josh set his coffee down on the railing beside him, his hands now free, his posture relaxed but grounded. Why are you here, Amanda? Direct. Clean. She inhaled softly, looking away for a brief second before meeting his eyes again. I wanted to talk. About what? About us. Josh didn't sigh. He didn't roll his eyes. He just looked at her, steady, unblinking. There is no us, he said. Her lips parted slightly as if she expected resistance, but not that clarity. Josh, come on, she said, her tone softening further. It wasn't that serious. He tilted his head slightly. You're right. Relief flickered across her face. It wasn't. The relief vanished just as quickly. Amanda crossed her arms, a subtle defensive reflex breaking through her practiced composure. You don't have to be like that. Like what? He asked. Cold. Josh shook his head slowly. I'm not cold. I'm just not pretending. The words weren't harsh. They didn't need to be. She exhaled sharply. So that's it? 5 months and you just walk away? Josh's expression didn't change. No, he said. I walked away because of what those 5 months showed me. Amanda stared at him, something sharper surfacing now beneath the soft tone she'd been using. You didn't even fight for it. Josh almost smiled. There it was. No, he said again. I didn't. Why not? She pressed. Because you were testing me, he replied. Not building anything. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. That's not fair. It is, he said calmly. You wanted reactions, not honesty. Amanda's eyes tightened slightly. And what, you found someone better already? Josh didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't have one, but because he didn't feel the need to offer it. That's not your concern anymore. That landed harder than anything else he'd said. Amanda's posture shifted again, less controlled now, more reactive. So there is someone. Josh picked up his coffee again, taking a slow sip before answering. I'm not discussing my life with you. Her laugh was short, brittle. Wow, you really flipped a switch. No, he said softly. I just stopped tolerating things I shouldn't have started. Silence, this time heavier than before. Amanda looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the performance slipped completely. You're serious, she said. Yes, that single word settled the entire conversation. No drama, no raised voices, just finality. Amanda let out a breath, something in her shoulders dropping. Not defeat, exactly, but recognition. All right, she said quietly. Josh gave a small nod. Take care of yourself. She turned without another word, walking away with more urgency than she'd arrived with. Josh watched her go for exactly 2 seconds. Then he turned back to the street. Conversation over. You handled that better than most people would. Josh didn't react immediately. Then he turned his head slightly. Lena stood a few feet away, leaning casually against the building wall, arms crossed loosely. She'd been there longer than he thought. How much of that did you hear? He asked. Enough. Josh nodded once, unsurprised. She has good timing, Lena added. Josh huffed a quiet laugh. She always did. Lena pushed off the wall, stepping closer but not too close. You didn't react, she said. I did, Josh replied. She raised an eyebrow. That's your version of reacting? It's my version of finishing something properly. Lena studied him for a moment. Are you always that clear? Only when it matters. A small pause settled between them, lighter than the conversation before, but still carrying its weight. Do you want to talk about it? She asked. Josh shook his head. There's not much to say. That's convenient. It's accurate, he said. Lena tilted her head slightly. She wanted back in. Yeah. And you didn't hesitate. No. Another pause. Then good, Lena said. Josh glanced at her. That's it. She shrugged lightly. What else would I say? I don't know, he admitted. Most people would analyze it. I'm not most people, she replied. He smiled faintly. I've noticed. Lena looked at him for another moment, something thoughtful in her expression. Let me ask you something, she said. Go ahead. If she'd shown up a month ago, Lena said, would you have handled it the same way? Josh didn't answer immediately. He considered it. Then, no. Lena nodded once like she expected that. But you didn't see her then, he continued. No, she said. Another pause. Timing matters, Lena added. Josh met her eyes. Yeah. They stood there for a moment longer, the city moving around them, neither of them rushing to fill the silence. Then Lena shifted slightly. So, she said, her tone easing just a bit. Does this mean your life is officially free of chaos now? Josh thought about that, then shook his head. No, he said. Just lower quality chaos. She smiled at that. I can work with that. Josh took a sip of his coffee, then glanced at her again. You weren't supposed to be here today. I know. Why are you? Lena hesitated just for a second. Then, I wanted to see you, she said. Simple. No layers. No performance. Josh felt something settle in his chest again. Steadier this time. Good timing, he said. Lena crossed her arms lightly, but her posture had softened. Seems like it. They started walking without deciding to. Side by side. No urgency. No pressure. Just movement. After a few steps, Lena spoke again. I trust you, she said. Josh stopped. Not abruptly, just enough to notice the moment. He looked at her. Why? He asked. Lena met his gaze steady. Because you don't chase things that aren't real. Josh held her eyes for a second longer, then nodded. That's fair. She studied him one more time, then exhaled, a small shift in her posture. All right, she said. Josh tilted his head slightly. All right what? Lena hesitated, then, for the first time since he met her, there was the faintest trace of uncertainty in her voice. I think I'm ready, she said. Josh didn't reach for his camera. Not yet, but this time he didn't say no. And that made all the difference. Chapter 7, The Honest Frame. Josh didn't bring the camera bag by accident. He never did anything by accident, not when it came to moments that mattered. The rooftop was Lena's idea. A quiet restaurant downtown with an open terrace overlooking the city. Subtle lighting, low noise, the kind of place that gave conversations room to breathe instead of suffocating them. It was early evening when they arrived, the sky just starting its slow transition into deeper color. The golden hour stretched across the skyline, soft and forgiving. Josh noticed the light first. Lena noticed that he noticed. You're doing that thing again, she said, pulling out her chair. What thing? She glanced out at the horizon, tracking the light instead of the moment. Josh sat across from her, setting the camera bag down beside his chair. They're connected, he said. They're not the same, she replied. He glanced at her, really looked this time. You're right, he said. A small smile pulled at the corner of her mouth. I know. Dinner started easily. That was the rhythm they'd fallen into over the past few weeks. There was no forced buildup, no awkward adjustment period anymore. They just started where they left off. You're quieter today, Lena said at one point, cutting a piece of her food without looking up. Josh considered that. Maybe. That wasn't convincing. He leaned back slightly. I'm thinking. About. Josh paused. Then he answered honestly. You. Lena stopped mid-motion, her fork hovering for just a second before she set it down. That's a dangerous answer, she said. It's an accurate one. She lifted her eyes to his, searching. For what? For where this goes, he said. Lena didn't respond immediately. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly, like she'd expected the conversation but still needed to decide how to meet it. Okay, she said finally. Josh waited. He didn't fill it, didn't push. Lena tapped her fingers lightly against the table once, then stopped. You don't rush things, she said. No, but you don't drift either. No. So this? She gestured lightly between them. This isn't just casual for you. Josh met her gaze. No, it's not. The words settled between them. Clear, steady, undeniable. Lena nodded once. Good, she said quietly. He tilted his head. Good. Yes. Why? Because if it was, she said, I wouldn't be here. Josh felt that one land deeper than expected. Fair, he said. They sat in silence for a moment, not uncertain, just deliberate. Then Lena spoke again. I don't do this lightly, she said. Neither do I. She nodded. I know. Another pause. Then, my last relationship, she continued, her voice measured, looked stable from the outside. Josh didn't interrupt. It wasn't, she said. It was quiet, controlled, predictable, but not honest. Josh leaned forward slightly now, his forearms resting on the table. What do you mean? Lena's expression didn't harden. It clarified. We avoided things, she said. Discomfort, conflict, real conversations. Why? Because it was easier than risking the outcome, she said. Josh held her gaze. And that worked. For a while, she admitted. And then, she shook her head slightly. Then it collapsed. Not loudly. Just, completely. Josh took that in. No drama. No chaos. Just absence. That's not what this is, he said. I know, Lena replied. That answer came quickly. Too quickly to be rehearsed. Josh noticed. Then what are you worried about? He asked. Lena hesitated just long enough to matter. Then she answered. That I won't see it coming if it changes, she said. That one was honest. Josh sat back slightly, letting it settle. Then don't try to predict it, he said. Lena frowned slightly. That's not helpful. It is, he replied calmly. You're trying to control something that works better when it's clear, not controlled. She studied him. You make that sound simple. It is simple, he said. It's just not easy. Lena exhaled softly, looking out over the city for a moment before returning her gaze to him. You really don't overcomplicate things, she said. I try not to. Why? Josh shrugged lightly. Because most complications come from people avoiding what's obvious. Lena smiled faintly. That sounds like experience. It is. A small pause. Then Lena leaned forward slightly, her tone shifting. More direct now, more grounded. All right, she said. Then answer something clearly. Josh nodded. Okay. What do you want from this? She asked. No hesitation. No deflection. Just a straight question. Josh didn't rush his answer. But he didn't stall either. I want something real, he said. Consistent. Honest. Stable without being stagnant. Lena's eyes didn't leave his. And with me? Yes. The certainty in that answer didn't rise, it settled. Lena held that for a moment longer. Then she nodded. Okay, she said. Josh tilted his head slightly. Okay. She let out a quiet breath, something in her posture easing. That matches what I want, she said. He smiled faintly. Good. But, she added, raising a finger slightly. Josh sighed. There's always a but. There has to be, she said. All right, go ahead. Lena leaned back again, crossing her arms loosely. I don't tolerate inconsistency, she said, or emotional distance disguised as composure. Josh nodded. Fair. And I won't chase, she continued. If something feels off, I address it. Directly. Good. And if it stays off, she said, her voice steady now, I walk. Josh didn't flinch. He nodded once. That's how it should be. Lena studied him again. You're not intimidated by that. No. Why? Because it's honest, he said. And I operate better in honesty than in guesswork. That answer lingered longer than the others. Because it wasn't defensive. It wasn't persuasive. It was just aligned. Lena relaxed slightly, her shoulders dropping just enough to notice. All right, she said again, quieter this time. Josh leaned forward just a fraction. All right, what? Lena held his eyes. Then, we try, she said. Not dramatic. Not overstated. Just real. Josh smiled, but it was smaller than expected. Not because it meant less, but because it didn't need to be bigger. Yeah, he said. We do. A soft silence followed. Not empty. Not uncertain. Just settled. After a moment, Lena glanced down toward the camera bag beside his chair. You brought it, she said. I did. She smiled slightly. You were waiting. Not waiting, he said. Ready. Lena considered that for a second. Then she stood. Come on, she said. Josh raised an eyebrow. Now? Now? She confirmed. They moved to the edge of the rooftop, where the city stretched out behind them, lights beginning to flicker on as the sun dipped lower. Lena stood there, hands at her sides for a second, then shifted, uncertain for the first time. Not uncomfortable, just aware. Josh didn't rush. He didn't raise the camera immediately. He just stepped into position. You don't have to do anything, he said. I know. Then don't. Lena exhaled slowly, her posture softening, her focus drifting away from him and out toward the city. The moment changed. Subtle, but real. Josh lifted the camera, adjusted once, twice, then click. He didn't take a second shot right away. Just one. Lena turned her head slightly. That's it. For now, he said. She studied him, then stepped closer. Let me see. Josh hesitated for half a second, then turned the display toward her. She looked at it, really looked. Then she went still, because it wasn't posed, it wasn't staged, it wasn't guarded. It was just her. After a moment, she let out a quiet breath. That's me, she said. Josh nodded. Yeah. She glanced up at him, something softer in her expression now. You were right, she said. About. You don't take the picture, she said. You wait for it. Josh smiled faintly. Something like that. Lena looked back at the image once more, then closed the distance between them just slightly. Good, she said quietly. And this time there was nothing uncertain left in her voice. Chapter 8, picture perfect, but real. The house was louder than the park had been. Not because of chaos, but because of presence. Voices layered over each other. Laughter coming in waves from different rooms. Footsteps shifting across hardwood floors that had seen decades of gatherings just like this one. The smell of food lingered warmly in the air. Familiar. Inviting. Unpretentious. Josh stood just inside the entryway, camera bag resting against his leg as he took it all in. This is a lot, he said. Lena stepped in beside him, slipping off her shoes, unfazed. This is normal. He glanced at her. Define normal. She smiled slightly. Noise. Opinions. Too much food. People pretending they're not arguing. Josh nodded once. All right, I can work with that. From across the room, a voice called out. Lena, you made it. A woman in her late 40s moved toward them, confident, warm, and observant in the way only someone deeply familiar could be. And you brought him, she added, shifting her attention to Josh immediately. Lena didn't hesitate. "Mom, this is Josh." Josh stepped forward, offering his hand. "Nice to meet you." Her mother didn't take his hand at first. She looked at him. Really looked. Josh didn't rush it. Didn't fill the moment. Then she smiled and shook his hand. "Good. You look steady." Josh almost laughed. "I try to be." She said, clearly taking that under review. "We'll see." Lena rolled her eyes. "That's her version of approval." "I didn't say that," her mother replied. But the edge had softened. The introductions continued. Cousins, uncles, a grandfather who shook Josh's hand like a contract was being signed. A younger sibling who asked 3 direct questions in under 10 seconds before losing interest entirely. Josh handled it the way he handled everything else. He observed. He adjusted. He engaged where it mattered. And more importantly, he stayed exactly who he was. Lena noticed. Not in a surface-level way, in the subtle shifts. The way he listened fully before answering. The way he didn't overcompensate for unfamiliar territory. The way he responded honestly instead of trying to impress. It worked. Slowly, the room adjusted to him. Conversations opened. Laughter expanded. Small invitations into the group came naturally. At one point, Lena stepped back slightly, watching him from across the room as he spoke with her uncle about camera equipment. Calm, relaxed, engaged without effort. "You picked well." Lena turned. Her mother stood beside her, arms crossed loosely, expression thoughtful. Lena didn't respond right away. "He didn't try to impress you," her mother added. "No," Lena said. "He didn't need to." Lena glanced back at Josh. "No," she repeated, quieter this time. Her mother nodded slightly. "That's rare." Lena smiled faintly. "I know." "Josh." He looked up to see Lena's younger cousin, maybe 8 years old, standing in front of him, holding a slightly crooked phone. "Can you take a picture of all of us?" she asked. Josh crouched slightly, lowering his voice to match her height. "What do you want it to look like?" The kid blinked. "Like, all of us?" He smiled. "That's a start. But what kind of all of us?" She frowned, thinking. "Fun," she said finally. Josh nodded. "All right, then we don't stand still." He stood, turning to the nearby group. "Everyone, quick request," he said. "No posing. Just stand close and talk to each other like you normally would." There was hesitation at first, then laughter. "That's not how pictures work," someone said. Josh grinned. "It is today." He stepped back, lifting the camera. "Don't look at me. Look at each other." The group shifted, uncertain, then natural. Someone made a joke. Someone else laughed too loudly. A kid bumped into an adult and nearly knocked over a glass. "Hold that," Josh said softly. Click. Another moment. Click. Then he stepped forward, lowering the camera. "Done." "That's it?" someone asked. "That's it." The group gathered around as he adjusted the display. And just like always, the moment landed. "That's perfect," Lena's aunt said quietly. "It actually looks like us," another added. Josh stepped back, letting them take it in. Lena moved closer, looking over the screen. And then she saw it. Not just the photo, the pattern. The same thing she had seen in the park. In the rooftop moment. In every interaction he chose to show instead of perform. "You don't change people," she said softly, standing beside him. Josh glanced at her. "No. You just let them be seen." He considered that. Something like that. Lena didn't respond. But she didn't need to. The evening stretched on. Food passed between hands. Conversations overlapped. Time moved without anyone checking it. At some point, Josh found himself standing slightly apart from the crowd again. Not alone. Just observing. Lena joined him a moment later. "You're doing it again," she said. "Observing. Thinking," she corrected. Josh nodded once. "A little. About what?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the room. Her family. The movement. The familiarity of it. Then back at her. "This," he said. Lena followed his gaze, understanding settling in without explanation. "It's loud," she said. "It's real," he replied. That earned him a small smile. "Same thing," she said. Josh huffed a quiet laugh. "Fair." A brief silence passed between them. Then Lena shifted slightly, turning more toward him. "This feels right," she said. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't heavy. Just certain. Josh met her eyes. "Yeah," he said. "It does." Another pause. Then, "Are you going to take my picture again?" she asked. Josh raised an eyebrow. "You asking?" Lena nodded once. "I'm asking." He considered that for exactly half a second. Then he reached for the camera. "All right." They stepped just outside the room, onto the small porch that overlooked the yard. The evening had settled into a calm, steady rhythm, the last light of day fading into something softer. Lena leaned lightly against the railing, not rigid, not posed, just there. Josh adjusted once, twice. He didn't speak, didn't interrupt. He waited, and then click. He lowered the camera. Lena looked at him. That fast. Didn't need more. She stepped closer, tilting her head slightly. Let me see. Josh turned the display toward her. She looked, and this time she didn't go still. She smiled. Not because of how she looked, but because of what it was. You were right, she said quietly. About. I don't mind pictures, she said. I just didn't like how they felt before. Josh nodded. That happens. She lifted her eyes to his. This doesn't feel like that. No, he said. It doesn't. A small silence lingered. Comfortable. Complete. Then Lena reached out. Simple, unforced, and took his hand. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just choice. Josh didn't react dramatically. He didn't need to. He just held it. Steady. The way everything between them had been. Not rushed. Not staged. Not perfect. But real. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a moment he needed to capture. Because he already knew this was the one worth keeping. Epilogue. 3 years later, the house was quieter than Lena's family gatherings. Not silent, never silent, but settled. There was a steady rhythm to it now. Soft movements, small noises, laughter that came in bursts instead of waves. It was the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty. Felt lived in. Josh stood in the doorway to the nursery, one hand resting lightly against the frame, watching. His son, 10 months old now, sat unsteadily on a soft mat, surrounded by an ambitious number of toys he had no intention of sharing with himself. His focus, as usual, was singular. Determined. Josh smiled faintly. You've got your mom's patience, he said under his breath. Absolutely not. Lena's voice came from behind him, followed by the light sound of her footsteps as she joined him in the doorway. She leaned her shoulder gently against his arm, eyes settling instantly on their son. That's your stubbornness, she added. Josh huffed a quiet laugh. He doesn't look stubborn. He threw a spoon at me this morning because I gave him the wrong one, Lena said. Josh tilted his head. There's a wrong spoon? There is when you offend him. They stood there for a moment, watching their son attempt to stack something that wasn't designed to be stacked. His concentration was absolute. His success was inconsistent. Josh felt Lena shift slightly beside him, her fingers brushing his once before settling into his hand like it belonged there. It always had. They hadn't made the decision to get married dramatically. There had been no uncertainty to wrestle with, no emotional tug-of-war, no long, drawn-out process of convincing themselves it was right. It had been obvious. After 9 months, Josh had known. Not in the impulsive way people sometimes described, but in the same way he knew when a photograph was right. There was no need for adjustment, just recognition. He hadn't planned some elaborate proposal. That wasn't their style. It had happened on a quiet afternoon walk. No audience, no pressure, no performance. They had been talking about nothing important. And then it became important. You're thinking again, Lena said, her voice pulling him back to the present. Josh glanced down at her, a faint smile already there. Always. About what this time? He squeezed her hand gently. The day I proposed. Lena's lips curved slightly. That wasn't a proposal. That was a conversation that escalated. Josh laughed quietly. I asked you to marry me. You did, she agreed. Without a ring. He tilted his head. You noticed that immediately. I'm observant, she said. Josh shifted slightly, turning toward her more fully. You weren't disappointed. No, she said simply. He studied her for a second. Most people would have been. Lena shrugged lightly. Most people expect a performance. And you didn't? I expected honesty, she said. That's what you gave me. Josh nodded once. I told you it should be your choice, he said. If you're the one wearing it, you should be the one who knows it's right. Lena smiled then, wider this time, the memory clearly landing the same way it always did. And then we spent 5 hours going to every jewelry store downtown, she said. You enjoyed that. I did, she admitted. More than I expected. Josh raised an eyebrow. You almost didn't pick anything. I wasn't going to choose something that didn't feel right, she said. He nodded, unsurprised. That tracks. Lena lifted her hand now, glancing at the ring still resting comfortably where it belonged. And then I found it, she said quietly. Josh looked at it too, not because of what it was, but because of what it represented. You didn't hesitate, he said. No, she replied. Neither did I. Lena glanced up at him, something soft passing between them again. Familiar, settled, certain. Exactly, she said. The wedding had been straightforward. Not small but not excessive. Not curated for appearances. Just a gathering of people that mattered, witnessing something that didn't need embellishment to be meaningful. There had been one moment, though, one conversation that stayed with Lena long after the day ended. Josh's mother had found her alone just before the ceremony, standing just off to the side, allowing herself a rare moment to breathe. Walk with me, she had said. It hadn't sounded like a request, but it hadn't needed to be. They had stepped away together, just far enough from the noise to hear each other clearly. I need you to understand something, his mother had said, her voice calm but deliberate. Lena hadn't interrupted. This isn't just about you marrying my son, she continued. It's about you understanding the life you're stepping into. Lena had nodded once, steady. I know he means a lot to you. That's not what I'm talking about, his mother interrupted gently. Then she had told her about the day Josh was born, the complications, the emergency, the moment everything could have gone differently, and didn't because someone had been skilled enough, fast enough, good enough. He was almost taken before I even got the chance to hold him, she had said. Lena hadn't said anything. She didn't need to. I made a promise that day, his mother continued, that I would protect him for as long as I'm alive. Lena met her eyes. I understand. His mother studied her for a moment longer. Then, I will always be protective of him, she said. That won't change. Lena nodded. I wouldn't expect it to. A pause. Then his mother allowed the faintest smile. But I won't interfere in your marriage, she said, because there can only be one queen in a castle. For the first time in that conversation, Lena laughed. Not politely, not carefully, genuinely. I think I can live with that, she said. His mother nodded once. Good, she replied. Back in the present, Lena leaned her head lightly against Josh's shoulder. You've been quiet again, she said. Josh looked down at her, amusement returning. I married into a loud family. I learned to pace myself. That's survival, she said. That's strategy. Their son let out a sudden triumphant noise, holding up something that had no business being a victory, but clearly was to him. Both of them turned toward him instantly. There it is, Josh said. Lena smiled softly. He thinks he conquered something. He did, Josh replied. Just doesn't know what yet. She glanced at him. You're going to say that about everything he does, aren't you? Probably. Lena huffed a quiet laugh. All right, hand him over. Rachel's voice came from behind them, followed by Elena stepping in just a second later. Both sisters moved with purpose, focused, intent. Different target now. Josh didn't even turn all the way around. You're back already? He asked. Rachel scoffed. We never left. Elena stepped past him, already reaching for the baby. We're just better at timing now. Josh watched as they immediately shifted into a new mode. Less sharp, more indulgent. They've completely redirected, haven't they? Lena said quietly. Josh nodded once. Yeah. Rachel lifted the baby easily, her expression softening in a way Josh had never seen before. This one, she said, is our project now. Elena glanced at Josh. You're stable. He's not. I'm right here, Josh said. And you turned out fine, Rachel added. He still needs work. Josh shook his head, smiling despite himself. You both said you'd spoil him. We meant it, Elena replied calmly. Lena leaned slightly closer to Josh. They're serious. I know, he said. And you're okay with that? Josh looked at his son, laughing now, completely at ease in the middle of it. Then at Lena, then back again. Yeah, he said. I am. Lena took his hand again, her fingers threading through his naturally, effortlessly. 3 years. Proposal without hesitation. A marriage without doubt. A life built without pretending. Josh squeezed her hand once, steady as always. And Lena, she held it, certain as ever. Because some things didn't need to be adjusted. They just needed to be kept.